Welcome to Roll for Insight, the D&D podcast where we dive into the game, the lore, and the internet's favorite arguments. Grab your dice and your character sheet, and let's roll for insight. Hello, welcome to Roll for Insight. In this episode, we're talking about the Barbarian Subclass, Path of the Berserker of the 2024 D&D Player's Handbook. Now, this is a path that's available to the Barbarian class at level 3, and the artwork in the Player's Handbook is pretty awesome. This Berserker is very Viking-esque. He's got the double battle axes, the tattoos, the braid, and in this episode, we'll cover the description of the subclass from the handbook. We will not be covering the core Barbarian traits or the general Barbarian class features, though it is a good idea to listen to the Barbarian class episode, as we'll be referencing points from it. We'll give a breakdown of the subclass features from levels 3 to 14. We'll do a general review of the strengths and limitations of the class. We'll pull some opinions from the internet, and we'll end on some fun fact information about the Path of the Berserker. Okay, first topic for the description as written. The Path of the Berserker. You channel rage into a violent fury. Barbarians who walk the Path of the Berserker direct their rage primarily toward violence. Their path is one of untrammeled fury, and they thrill in the chaos of battle as they allow their rage to seize and empower them. Now let's talk about the subclass features here from levels 3 to 14. So the first subclass feature you get access to at level 3 is Frenzy. If you use Reckless Attack while your rage is active, you deal extra damage to the first target you hit on your turn with a strength-based attack. To determine the extra damage, roll a number of d6s equal to your rage damage bonus and add them together. The damage has the same type as the weapon or unarmed strike used for the attack. So basically, Frenzy adds extra damage when you hit while you're raging, and it scales as you level by increasing the number of d6s that you roll. So some key clarifications here. This is once per turn, not per attack. So even when you get the extra attack later, you're adding this damage to one hit per turn. So this makes it very consistent, and you're not reliant on criticals or multiple hits landing. And this is a big shift from the older versions of Berserker. You're no longer punished with one level of exhaustion when you finish your rage. Exhaustion can get really serious very quickly, and now you're just getting a really clean, repeatable damage boost. And this makes Berserker much more reliable and much easier to play across multiple encounters. Now, at level 6, you get access to Mindless Rage. You have immunity to the Charmed and Frightened conditions while your rage is active. If you're charmed or frightened when you enter your rage, the condition ends on you. So, while raging, you're immune to Charm and Frightened. That is a massive defense upgrade for Barbarians, because as mentioned in the core class episode, Barbarians are extremely strong physically, but they're also really vulnerable to the mental effects, because usually you're putting your stat boosts into things like Strength and Dexterity and Constitution, and that makes the mental saves pretty low or in the negatives. So this feature directly patches that weakness. And also important, it is tied to rage, which you're already using in combat. So there's no extra action or resource required to use this. So this is one of the cleanest and most impactful defensive features in the Barbarian subclasses. Now at level 10, you get access to Retaliation. When you take damage from a creature that is within 5 feet of you, you can take a reaction to make one melee attack against the creature using a weapon or an unarmed strike. So when a creature damages you, you use your reaction to make a melee attack against them. That is fantastic for action economy, because Barbarians don't have many competing uses for their reaction, besides opportunity attacks, which is essentially the same function. It gives you a bonus attack. So this gives you a consistent way to use it now every single round. It also punishes enemies for attacking you, and it really reinforces your role as a frontline threat here. Now, an important note here, this triggers when you take damage, not when you're missed. So it pairs really well with your durability and your damage resistance, plus it can also be useful when it's paired with feats like Sentinel. So you're effectively turning the incoming damage into an additional offensive attack. Now, the last subclass feature here at level 14 is Intimidating Presence. As a bonus action, you can strike terror into others with your menacing presence and primal power. When you do so, each creature of your choice in a 30-foot emanation originating from you must make a wisdom saving throw, a DC of 8 plus your strength modifier and proficiency bonus, and on a failed save, a creature has the frightened condition for 1 minute. At the end of each of the frightened creature's turns, the creature repeats the save, ending the effect on itself on a success. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest unless you expend a use of your rage, no action is required, to restore a use of it. So this one means you can frighten creatures within 30 feet. The save DC is based on strength, so 8 plus your proficiency plus your strength modifier. Now by level 14, when you get this, your DC will typically be very high and quite reliable. So your DC will likely be around 8 plus 5 for proficiency bonus, plus 5 for strength, so around 18. You can also recharge this by spending a use of your rage, and that makes it a lot more usable than the strict once per long rest features. And this gives Berserker a rare form of area control. There's not many things they can do to affect areas, and it's a way to influence multiple enemies at once. For the most part, Barbarians are single target focused. And it's one of the very few Barbarian features that actually impacts enemies before they even reach you. So let's look at some overall strengths and limitations of the Path of the Berserker. So first off, some strengths. It has very consistent damage output. That Frenzy ability gives a really reliable bonus damage every single turn. You've also got a huge benefit with that Mindless Rage that shuts down Charm and Fear. The Berserkers have really good action economy with the retaliation. You can add damage outside of your turn. And then it's very simple and it's effective for new players. You rage, you attack, you stay in the fight, and you punish anyone who attacks you. So the Berserker is probably one of the most straightforward and dependable Barbarian subclasses you can choose. It doesn't rely on a lot of tricks or niche mechanics. It's just a simple, effective attacker. Now, some limitations here. There's limited utility outside of combat. Almost all of the features here are combat focused, and depending on the campaign you're playing, that might be a good thing or it might limit you. Another limitation is that the intimidating presence really just comes online at level 14. Many campaigns don't even make it to that level. So compared with the other subclasses, Berserker offers less variety. You're just very focused on the damage and the durability. So if you're looking for complexity or versatility with the Barbarian, this subclass might feel limited. Now, let's take a quick look at some internet discourse and opinions about the Path of the Berserker. So a pretty popular take right now is that this version is way better than the 2014 Berserker. So the removal of the exhaustion from Frenzy that the 2014 version gave. So levels of exhaustion in the 2014 edition range from having disadvantage on ability checks to literally death. And it has been reworked for 2024, but it's still a brutal condition to receive. So now the subclass is actually playable across multiple encounters. So a lot of players feel that this version is finally delivering that Berserker without punishing the player. Now, some arguments showing up are that it's just too simple to play. Some people are arguing that it lacks interesting decision points, and it doesn't change your playstyle very much from just a base Barbarian class. And that's fair. This subclass really just leans heavily into the simplicity, the reliability, the consistency of damage. And for some players, that's the feature, not a flaw. One of the negatives that comes up is that the frenzy damage, although it sounds nice, it's a little bit underwhelming. And it comes up because it's just once per turn and it uses D6s. And some players compare that to subclasses that can add multiple damage riders or scales a little bit more aggressively. But again, the counterpoint to this, it's not about the burst damage, it's about the consistency, it's about the reliable setup, and it works every time you hit. But again, generally speaking, the Barbarian and the Berserker is pretty well received. The Berserker feels the most Barbarian-like Barbarian because you hit harder, you ignore fear, you punish anything that hits you or gets close, and you stand in the middle of the fight and you just don't go down. There's no tricks or gimmicks to it. It's just aggression and its attacks. Now, to wrap up here, with some fun facts about the Path of the Berserker. So the Berserker archetype actually comes from Norse mythology, where Berserkers were warriors set to enter a trance-like rage in battle. And historically, they were described as fighting without fear and ignoring pain, and they would often wear animal pelts, often bears or wolves. And the Old Norse form of the word is a compound of the word ber, which had several meanings, but in this context probably meant bear, and zerk or zerker, meaning shirt. So bear shirt, because they would often wear animal pelts. And this lines up almost perfectly with the D&D Barbarian fantasy. Now, in the 2014 version of D&D, Berserker was actually one of the most criticized subclasses because Frenzy caused exhaustion, which made it very difficult to use repeatedly. And the 2024 update has essentially redesigned that aim to remove the punishment and increase the usability and just make it a really viable subclass for a full adventuring day. Well, that's it for this session of Roll for Insight. Thanks for listening, and thank you to all our supporters on patreon.com/rollforinsightpodcast. And we will see you next time.